Okay, find the value of c that creates a perfect square trinomial, then factor it. So we have x to the second power plus 12x plus c. So again, the value to find the c is b divided by 2 to the second, and then you'll need to factor it with the t-table. Okay, so that's a. Remember, the end goal is to write a binomial to the second power. That's the whole point of this. You want to write a binomial where there's two terms to the second, written to the second power. So first we have to come up with this third term. So b is 12 divided by 2 is 6 to the second, and then c is 6 times 6, and that's 36. So your c value is 36. So now I have my trinomial. I just need to make it into a binomial squared. Okay. So 1 times 36 is 36. Take that to the t-table. Sign has to be a match. You can put double negative or double positive. It's got to add to positive 12, so it'll probably become double positive. Now to find the number, all you need to do now is square root the 36. It's 6, because negative 6 plus negative 6 is negative 12. We need positive 12, so we put plus plus. Now the a over there is always going to be 1x to the second when you perform this procedure. And you will make your parentheses now, put in the positive 6's, then x second, that would go to 1, 1. Now we can't do anything with the 1x and the 6, so take the 1's off, and it's x plus 6, x plus 6, so x plus 6 to the second power. Okay, rewrite the following quadratic equation in vertex form. This is going to be the setup. Okay, y equals, y equals, y equals. Now, here's how you want to set this up. You want to put a parentheses with a 1x second. Then you will want to put two parentheses here, nothing inside. And then you will want to put a parentheses to the second, right there. Now you also want to put a parentheses around these two things right here. So that's the setup. That's how you should set up every time. And you know you will need to use your c equals b divided by 2 to the second. And you know you will need your t-table. Okay, so the first thing I do on the next step is check to make sure I have 1x to the second power. Okay, I do. So I don't need to divide and factor out a number. So I just put up the 4x, and you put the plus 25 outside. Okay, now this is a, this is b, and we need to find our c over here. We don't want to use the 25 as a c. We need to find a new c. Okay, so b is 4, divided by 2 is 2, 2 to the second. So 2 to the second is 2 times 2, and that equals 4. So I'm going to bring in a 4 into this side of the equation. Remember, here are my equals, okay? Now, if I'm bringing in a number here on this side, I got to bring in a number here on this side. Now, to figure out what the number is, you circle your C, and if there's no number outside, it's just going to be 4 that we brought in, so we have to add a 4 to this side. Then, well, I don't want a 4 added to the y. I'd rather have it added somewhere so the y is by itself. So I minus 4, and I do that under the outside term, the 25. Okay, now we're set up. The first part's done. And then we got to factor that trinomial. Okay, 1 times 4 is 4. Positive 4, okay, so it's a match. And it has to add to positive 4. Square root of 4 is 2. That adds to negative 4 now, but if I go like this, it's positive 4. Okay, the a is 1x to the second power. So you put in the positive 2, so x, and then 1, 1. Now those aren't going to really simplify. Take your 1's off the front, and it's x plus 2x plus 2. 25 minus 4 is 21. Okay, so I put x plus 2 to the second plus 21. There's your answer. Okay, number 3 is trying to accomplish the same thing that number 2 did. Okay, write the following quadratic equation in vertex form. So y equals, y equals, y equals. So you get a parentheses with the 1x to the second, okay? You got to know the steps to this. Then you make a parentheses, two parentheses, and then a parentheses to the second power. And you will wrap this up in a parentheses. Okay, so you're going to have to find a c value using your b divided by 2 squared, and then you will make the t-table. Okay, the problem is we have a 3x second. Well, I need to get that to a 1x second by dividing, but you need to divide by 3, not x, just 3, and you also need to divide this by 3. That's why you put the parentheses around the x second and the x, so that's just these two that get divided by 3, okay? The plus 10 is just going to kick out down here. Now this 3 I'm dividing by doesn't just go away. It now becomes in front of our parentheses. Now don't forget to divide the negative 36 by 3 too. That's negative 12x. Now the ABC is done from here. Okay, now let's get our C. So C, B is negative 12. Negative 12 divided by 2 is negative 6 to the second. That's 36. Okay, so plus 36. Now, when you bring in a number to one side of the equation, you got to bring it to the other side. So, you brought in 36, but we have a 3 out here. So, what I really brought in is 36 times 3. That's 108. So, it's 108 that I add to both sides, that I'm adding over here. Added the product of 3 and 36, so it's 108. That's a number we need to add to the other side to balance the equation. But then I quickly minus 108 because I don't want it there, and I do that under the 10. Okay, now we factor the trinomial 1, negative 12, 36. 1x second, negative 12x, positive 36. Okay, so A times C, it's 36 positive. You're adding to negative 12, okay? All right, it's got to be a match because it's a positive. Square root of 36 is 6. There's your 12 right there. That's what it adds to, and I want it to add to negative 12. So A is 1x to the second power. Negative 6, negative 6, and then x, 1, 1. You can't do anything about that, so those will just stay the same. Take the 1 x's off. Okay, so x minus 6, and after the trinomial, you just have to take the 10 and subtract 108, and that's negative 98. Okay, and then x minus 6, and then negative 98. There's your answer. Okay, find the value of k that creates a perfect square trinomial. It doesn't have to be factored. I don't like k. Put b. Okay, put b instead of k. Okay, so now we're finding what the b would be to make a perfect square trinomial. Well, the way to find the middle term when you don't know it is go a, b, c. And b is equal to the square root of the a times c product, and then multiplied by 2. So a is 1, c is 16. So 1 times 16 is 16, so I'd have the square root of 16 times 2. The square root of 16 is 4, and 4 times 2 is 8, so b would be 8. Okay, next one, complex numbers. Evaluate I to the 6th. So remember, I to the second equals negative 1. So you're going to write I to the seconds till you're at 6. So I to the second times I to the second times I to the second. So all these are replaced with negative 1. Okay, well that multiplies to a negative, and it's going to be 1. So you know it's going to be 1, it's just a matter if it's negative 1 or positive 1. Odd amount gives you negatives. Okay, simplify. This is a complex number, 5 plus 3i. This is a complex number, 8 minus 10i. So we have addition. So we go blank plus blank I. So 5 plus 8 is 13. then 3 plus negative 10 is negative 7. Okay. Now we got complex number subtraction. Okay. So subtraction, you want to make that a negative, and then this and this go to the opposite. So blank plus blank I. So the constants 3 plus negative 10 is negative 7, and then negative 6i plus negative 7i is negative 13i. So subtraction's like addition, you just got to reverse the signs in the second quantity. Okay, next one, C1, C2, and now you're multiplying, so you distribute. So 5 times 7, 5 times 5i. Okay, that's, and then the 5, and then negative 2i times 7, negative 2i times 5i. 5 times 7 is 35, 5 times 5i is 25i, negative 2i times 7 is negative 14i, and negative 2i times 5i is negative 10i to the second. Remember, I to the second holds a value that you replace I to the second with, and it's negative 1. So negative 10 times negative 1 is 10. Okay? So blank plus blank I. So 35 plus 10 is 45. 25 plus negative 14 is 11. Alright, now, this shouldn't say, for 5 and 6, it shouldn't say simplify, it should say find the quotient. Okay. So it's division, but you can't divide with an I on the bottom. So you want a parentheses, and we want to make a new fraction where we don't have I on the bottom, and then we can go ahead and divide. Now the question is, how many terms do you have on the bottom here? One term. So one term means I just multiply by I. If I do my multiplication right, I will be removed from the bottom of the fraction. Okay, so top, bottom. Okay, so I take 5 times 1i, and then 6i times 1i. 6i to the second, okay? Alright, so I to the second is replaced with negative 1. 6 times negative 1 is negative 6. So negative 6, 5i. That's what we put on top. Now the bottom, we take 4i times 1i. Okay, 4 times 1 is 4, I times I is I to the second, and then the I seconds replaced with negative 1. So 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. Okay, now you're going to divide, because now the I is removed from the bottom. So negative 6 divided by 4, negative 4 is 1.5. You can put 1.5 or 1.5. You can even put 3 over 2. Okay, and then 5 divided by negative 4 is negative 1.25, but that still is multiplied by I. Okay, so 5 divided by negative 4, negative 1.25. Again, you divide the negative 6 by the negative 4, 1.5, then you take the 5i divided by the negative 4, negative 1.25i. Alright, next problem. Same thing, you're trying to do the same thing here. The only difference is now you have 2 terms in the denominator. So you have to employ the conjugate method. You're going to keep the constant the same because I don't care about that, but what I do with this I don't want there is I just simply switch that to a positive 2i, and then this is this it has to be copied. Whatever I put here, I have to put here. Okay, I have to make sure I'm multiplying the top and the bottom by the exact same expression so that it maintains its equivalence. Okay, FOIL on top. So 8 times 5. 2 by 2 multiplications, FOIL. 8 times 2i. Negative 7i times 5. And then negative 7i times 2i. That's 40. That's 16i. It's negative 35I, and that's negative 14I to the second. Okay, remember I to the second's replaced with negative 1. Negative 14 times negative 1 is positive 14. Okay. So 40 and 14 combine into 54. 16 plus negative 35 make negative 19I. You can put plus negative or minus 19I. It doesn't matter which. Okay. Now, down on bottom, 5 times 5. 5 times 2I. Negative 2I times 5. And then negative 2I times 2I. So it's 25, 10I, negative 10I, and negative 4I to the second. So remember, the I to the second is replaced with negative 1. Negative 4 times negative 1, this is times now, that's 4. 25 plus 4 is 29, then 10 plus negative 10 is 0. Okay, so 29. Now you get to go ahead to divide, because now I'm dividing by a constant instead of something with an I. Okay, so second PRB that. 1 and 25 29ths. Then negative 19 divided by 29. Second PRB that, and that's negative 19 29ths. Okay. I. Okay, this still needs I. There you go. Okay, solve the equation. Negative 2x to the second power plus 8 equals 56. So I have x second only in the equation. So I'm using linear properties to solve it. I'm not factoring. Followed by a square root. Okay, here's linear properties. So you got multiplication and addition. So you're going to minus your 8. 46 minus 8 is 56 minus 8 is 48. Then I divide by negative 2, and that's negative 24. Okay, second power, you make a square root, you have to poke the I out. Okay, how that's dealt with. Now the square root of 24 is irrational. Okay, so IRR, it's not a whole number and it's irrational square root. So you divide and you make your two square roots, but you got to put the I in the middle. (24) divided by 16 is a decimal, 9 is a decimal, and then 4 and 6. So square root of 4 is 2. Okay, so 2I square root of 6. So remember, that could be positive or negative. Okay. All right, x is second minus 3x plus 10 equals 0. Okay, so you have x second, you have x, you're using factoring properties. Okay, so there's two answers. Zero's there, so there's 3 terms. Okay, so Gcf table. This doesn't do what you think it does at first glance. Okay, the GCF's 1. Some of you are like, oh, T-chart's going to work 5 and 2. No, it's not. Okay, because you got 10. That's a match. The signs have to match to make positive 10. You have to add to negative 3. Remember, the signs have to match. Okay, 1 and 10 is negative 11, but that's not what you were thinking. You're thinking it's 2 and 5, but that adds to negative 7. And you're like, well, if I just made it negative 5, positive 2, it'd work. No, the signs have to match, okay? And they don't. Well, the signs have to match, and they have to add to negative 3. So there's no way to do that. That is a QF. So x equals opposite of b, plus or minus d square root b squared minus 4ac, b squared minus 4ac over 2a, over 2a. Okay, so the opposite of b is 3. then B negative 3. 4AC, so A is 1, C is 10, and the A down there is 1. So 3, 2 times 1 is 2. I got negative 31. So again, remember in a quadratic formula, if you have to poke the I out, now you have to do the irrational simplification. You can't just write 5.56 because what about the I? Okay, so you label that IRR, you put a division sign, and you make 2 square roots with the I in between. Okay. So on the board, 31 up on the board, the first number I would try to divide by is probably 25. Doesn't work. 16 doesn't work. 9 doesn't work. 4 doesn't work. 1's always going to work. So 1 and 31. So square root of 1's 1. So 1I square root 31. So 3 plus 1I square root 31 over 2, and then 3 minus 1I square root 31 over 2. That's how those answers are written. Don't try to add and divide or subtract and divide. You can't.